I'd like to introduce Keith Stuart of The Guardian and Contribute to Edge, who's going to be chairing a panel talking about independent thought, looking back and gazing forward at life as an independent studio from 5 survivors.
Okay. Thanks very much. Yeah, I think the idea really is to talk about what the last year has been like for a group of independent developers, and also sort of look ahead and see some of the things they might have to put up with in the coming year, to give you a sort of an idea of what it's like on the front lines of indie game development. So I think what I'll do is I'll just get our panellists to introduce each other, and maybe for each of you just tell us like one of the key challenges you've faced this year. And the other thing is we want this to be a bit more interactive, so any time at all, because we've only got half an hour, any time at all you've got a question or a comment or a complaint about anything we said, just stick your hand up, don't be shy, and we will take it as it comes in. So go ahead, Ed.
Hello, I don't have a microphone, but I have a really booming voice, so I'm just going to go with that. My name's Ed, I'm a producer at Curve Studios in Islington. This last 12 months we've released 3 games, one on PSN, one on WiiWare, and one on PSP, a retail game, the other 2 were digital downloads. And the challenging thing for us last year was trying to build a name for ourselves, trying to get people to know who we are, and also dealing with some people that weren't fun to deal with. But we'll see if I can manage to not talk about that during this.
You won't manage to not talk about that.
I've already tweeted that I don't like Steam, so that's pretty much it.
Ooh.
We'll get into that, I'm sure.
Okay, I'm Byron. I founded Cytic Studios about 5 years ago. Released Flash games, iPhone games, and so forth. Last year I released an iPhone game, and I spent the rest of the year dealing with work for hire. And the most challenging thing for this year, dealing with the work for hire.
So I'm Romanos, I'm the MD of Remode. We've been going 4 years. We make games for ourselves and also do a lot of client work, mostly online and mobile, a lot of 3D stuff. Our biggest challenge probably has been that we tried to work with publishers, and now we're not doing that.
Hi, my name is Andrew Smith, and I founded Spilt Studios about 18 months ago. Make primarily iPhone games. And the biggest challenge, other than dealing with the loneliness of making games by yourself in a shed, was, well actually no, that was the biggest challenge.
Hello again, Simon from 4 Door Lemon. We've been going 6 years now. Currently working on PS3 and Vita, but also some very nice IP, and also working on a few other Vita projects. And we're also releasing our own iOS projects such as TikTok Body Pop, You Are the Ref, You Are the Umpire, and a couple of other collaborations such as Cricket Captain and a new game called The Lighthouse coming out soon. Biggest challenge at the moment, managing all of it. So,
But we'll skip aside Andrew's loneliness, I think, for this session, and maybe that's a session for another day.
Yeah.
But I think one of the key things that all the studios have said is that getting that balance right. When you're emerging studio, getting that balance right between doing the games you really want to do and everyone's passionate about, and doing the projects that pay, and they're coming from outside your studio. Can we talk a little bit about that? I mean, what are the problems there for you?
Okay, well I'll go first, just because I'm going to probably say something quite controversial, in that I actually really there are publishers I really like working with, a publisher in particular, but I genuinely feel that to just like throw away all publishers and tar them with one brush is it's just not a good thing to do. We have worked with publishers who have been supportive, who have helped us shape our vision, who have actually actively contributed to making it better, given us the space and the time that we've needed. So Curve's philosophy is absolutely not to just go down the self-publishing route. I mean, we did do our first self-published game early this year, and it's definitely something we want to do more of. But we absolutely value the relationships that we have with some publishers and platform holders, and we absolutely do not want to just sit here and say that we don't have any care for that, because there are some really lovely publishers out there. Admittedly, they are very much outnumbered by the dicks. But when you find one, I promise you won't want to leave them.
For me, it was a case of I started out to go do the kind of indie dream, make out the games that you want to make and play the things I want to play. I think. So I started out doing that. It was going quite well for a while, but then the money ran out. And so people started calling me and say, "Oh, you're free. Can you do some contract work for us?" And for a while, reticent, but then I said, "Okay, I'll do it." And then the kind of temptation of like money month after month came in. I was doing the games in spare time, but like I said, in this last year, that doing contracting work as opposed to doing the games I want to make has been overtaken somewhat because the contract work became more and more and more and more demanding. They want more changes, they want this and that and so forth. And so far it's like contract work as opposed to my own games. It's really hard to keep those two things in tune. It's like that anyway.
Yeah, definitely. We when we started there, we wanted to do contract work. We've always wanted to do that and our own stuff, and I think we probably always will. It is difficult, particularly trying to allocate the resource to your own stuff because you don't want to turn work down. But you know, we actually enjoy a lot of the work for hire we do. We're not quite at a point where we can pick and choose yet, but a lot of the projects we do are quite fun, and a lot of them we get to look at the concept side of stuff. So I think the thing that we don't really enjoy is when it's completely dictated so much. We like being involved, and that can be quite good. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing.
It's a similar thing, I guess, to what Ed was saying with some publishers. You know, they love getting their hands dirty for the, you know, better or worse, really. And the same can be said with some clients. I mean, I've done one commission project for an accountancy firm who had a standout there. A little maths numbers game, free download. And that was really good because they basically just trusted me to make the game. I'm the game guy, you know, they're the numbers guys. So that was good. And then with Hardlines, that was me kind of expressing what I wanted to do. And that's why I started up. I spent a lot of time at various companies, gradually getting to a point with every single one where I thought I can do better than this, or I just don't care as much as I did. And now I'm in a position where I can kind of make a joke at a serious panel, and there's no PR person leaning over me saying it's a bad idea. So,
I mean, I think when we started up, the original plan was to do work for hire with a mix of middleware sales in there. We did a lot of licensing early on. We kind of got stuck in a bit of a rut with the work for hire where we weren't looking for the projects that maybe matched the team as best as possible. It meant that we did a lot of different things. The plan always was to build enough revenue to then have, you know, to spend on our own projects and get working with those, but that took us 4 years to actually get out of that, which wasn't the plan. And we also had a recession in the middle of that, which left us owing a lot of money on, you know, on the publishing side. In terms of what we're doing now, we are doing a lot more self-published stuff, but we're very keen to find exciting work for hire projects that we can really get our teeth into and do a good job with, you know, like the Monty's Odyssey stuff.
Just a quick question. How do you come across as a small studio? How do you come across work for hire? I mean, just in these places?
Yeah, basically.
What do you do? You sort of go around and pull yourself at people? That's probably not the best.
You were around last night, weren't you?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you know, we have a hopefully a decent reputation of getting things done for people, and that eventually spreads, you know, around people who talk. I think these sort of events, it's just a case of keeping up with everyone and seeing what requirements people have got, and see how it goes.
I mean, for me, it was a bit weird. When I set up my company, I was looking for an accountancy firm to kind of run all the accounts. And then when they found out that I made games, they were kind of interested, and we got to chatting, and I basically just asked them if they wanted a game, and they did. So that was cool. You know, you just got to chance it. Sometimes you just got to push yourself out there. Don't be afraid. You know, if someone says no, it doesn't matter. But I was just like wondering specifically for everyone else, like how they got their very first project, because that's the one that kind of, you know, enables you to carry on.
Can't remember what the first one was, but most of our work is actually not from the games industry. So most of our work is particularly from TV brands, other brands, things like that. Like to do more stuff in games, and yeah, we get most of that from conferences basically. So that's my life pretty much.
I think for me it was for about a year somebody had been nagging me to go and join their game studio, and I kept turning them down. Every other month I'd get this call, can you come work for us yet? So I said no. They said, hang on, I've just heard you're not working for anybody now, so what's your excuse? So I said, okay, I'll come work for you for a couple of months. And from then it's been, people have heard that I'm not working anymore, and then they say come work here or whatever. I've been approached mainly. I haven't actually gone out to have to go and find things. A bit of an odd situation though, I've actually bumbled into an advertising agency through work, kind of natural evolution and progression, if you like. I haven't actually sorted out yet. I'm not looking forward to when I do have to.
I think for us, it would have been about 4 or 5 years ago. I think, primarily networking is obviously a big part of it, but it's also reputation. I mean, I don't know how we got our very first PSP contracting work, but it was like completely under the carpet. You know, your standard work for hire, and you know, it's in another developer's name. But you did that, and then suddenly another. This was about 2006, so around the launch of PSP. I don't know if Bliss was the first one. I'm not sure. We did some work for Barratt. But then that basically, then somebody else would be looking for a PSP developer who had already had experience, and then somebody else was, and then that got us into doing the PSP versions of Buzz with Sony, which turned into a 5 games over 4 years. And from there on, you know, from then on, you have a kind of a reputation, better or worse. We are sometimes still classified as a quiz games company, which is a bit, it can be annoying at times. But yeah, I mean, it's largely, you know, I don't know how you get that. I don't really know how you get that very first one. I wasn't around then, but you do very much, especially if you specialise. I mean, we had the specialty of PSP development. And so from that, we were then in demand. You could have the same if you were, for example, working on Vita now. Then when certain publishers are looking for Vita ports or whatever, then you have that experience, and it immediately puts you above a lot of other people.
I think our first project was existing contacts we had in the Yorkshire games industry, looking for some PS2 work at the time. So this kind of came through existing contacts from the previous company, which was a panel before, sort of found back to.
I think the first one that we only started doing contract work about a year ago, and actually the first sort of one that I think started kicking everything off was Mobile Pie commissioned us to do the artwork on My Star, which was their mobile game with Orange, and we were obviously, it wasn't like white label, so we were able to like use that to get more, and people really liked the artwork, so that was a big one for us, and we just met them because they're in Bristol and near us.
Yeah, I suppose it's all about reputation, isn't it? Once you've done a few projects, then you get known for them.
Yeah.
And then you can get going. But then that becomes a difficulty, then, if you get known for doing contract work rather than your own work.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And how about one of the key things nowadays for smaller studios is that obviously the idea of digital distribution is massively important, especially if you're talking about a world where publishers are kind of a thing you might have and might not. You can't self-publish unless you're digital. So what have been the panel's experiences with digital distribution? Ed, I know you're a big fan of Steam, so maybe you want to start.
So we did Explode on PlayStation Network, which came out in February, I believe. That was a really interesting experience, you know, because rather than going, you know, iPhone or something small, we went for the big guns essentially, and it was a real learning curve, getting used to your responsibilities as a publisher. If you want to, I think this is partly what shapes my view now. If you want to appreciate what a publisher does, you do it yourself, and then you go, Jesus Christ, I never want to do that again. So we did that. I mean, it was not easy. I mean, it's definitely not. It's nowhere near as easy as it was made out to be, and it's a long process. But I mean, we were lucky. I mean, Sony are absolutely brilliant at supporting indie developers. They're really welcoming, and they really kind of took us under their wing and got us into the pub fund, and then helped us with the marketing and all that. So they were really good. We have since tried. Well, we've been doing a PC port of the game, which we tried to get onto Steam, but they turned it down, which is their prerogative, of course. But actually, it's funny. Having been to all of these conferences before, I was expecting to find Steam to be like, you know, the good guy, the one that's standing up for indies. And don't get me wrong, they do a lot. I mean, it is a great platform. As a consumer, I love it. But actually, in terms of approval, it was the most untransparent approval process that I've ever done. At least with Microsoft and Sony, you understand where you are in the process, you get feedback, you get the opportunity to resubmit. When our experience with Steam is that we got none of that. We were just told a blank no, don't ever come back with that game again. not quite that bad, but it felt like bad. So basically, the only reason I mention it is not because I want to whinge, although I do love a good whinge, but genuinely, I guess our experience has been don't go into it lightly. I mean, it is a really big thing. I mean, iPhone is certainly an easier platform to go for, and I don't mean that in a like, oh yeah, well done guys, you did iPhone, brilliant work, whatever. But seriously, I mean, like seriously, but do see consoles and do see PCs as a step up from that, because you are suddenly doing age ratings and you're doing TRCs and you're doing all of these things that you know, submission, all these things that you really, to be honest, if you're an indie and you don't have many people, you don't. I don't know if you actually want to be doing it.
Yeah, I mean, our game's on Steam, More Control, and I mean, obviously.
God damn you!
Well, I was actually about to back you up because I have been talking to other publishers, and whilst we haven't necessarily had as good experience as you guys, I would completely back you up that Valve don't actually appear to have a process.
Yeah.
Obviously we've got on there and it's good in that sense, but yeah, there is no transparency and there's no structure. There wasn't a few years ago.
One of the reasons that I set up on my own and went for iPhone first, I mean, like you say, it's quite easy to just get something out on there, but I didn't want a publisher involved, not because I'd had terrible experiences, just I wanted to try and prove to myself that I could do it. And yeah, like Ed said, ever since I've really appreciated what publishers do. There was a sort of stroppy element to it. I'm better than that, and I'm not. Frankly, they do an amazing job. That said, I do think that having done all the PR and everything that I've been doing, hopefully some of you have heard of me.
Tumbleweed.
You're that self-promoting twat, aren't you?
I'm tweeting right now. Other than what they offer in terms of, it's fine. Other than what they offer in terms of, I ripped off Snake, dude. It's not a big deal. I don't have any pride. So publishers do not. I don't think that they really have. I have thrown myself off my own.
What have you? You've both said that. Shut up. You've both said that publishers are useful, but you haven't really said why. And what in the digital space, in terms of digital distribution, what do they actually offer?
Marketing.
Yeah. Marketing, yeah.
I mean, when I said we'd had problems with publishers, I'm talking about people trying to get people to fund the game. What I am really interested in at the moment, and which we're having a lot more success with, is the fact that we can now afford to self-fund it. So what I'm talking to publishers about is distribution, marketing, and support in other ways. And to be honest, the reason we're doing that is because I don't want to. And I'm very good at it. So yeah, I think they really do have their place. I just think that they need to evolve, and some of them are, but they need to evolve to support the new platforms and the new ways of doing things.
I think it's marketing and input, because obviously they know where the markets are and what sells in those markets. We can spend all our time looking at them and trying to guess that ourselves, but we're not on that side of things, or we're trying to be maybe.
Yeah. I think it just lets you. I remember what I was going to say. It's kind of random. It lets you go to a publisher with a game that you have basically finished, and then they can, you can find someone who's going to partner with that game. They're not going to try and change it halfway through the process. And that's bad for everyone. It's bad for them. It's bad for you. So it's really good to be able to go to someone with what you're going to sell, kind of with or without their help. And if you find someone with all that expertise who believes in it, then you're onto a winner, and that's a brilliant thing that's only come about in the last sort of 5 years, I guess.
It doesn't stop them though. I remember when I worked at Pom Pom, we were publishing Bliss Island. Now Pom Pom, they made kind of hardcore little shooters and things, and suddenly we had this Bliss Island, which is a kind of hardcore puzzle game at the time. But we partnered with Codemasters, and they started making requests like, can we change the eggs on level 3 to become cakes? It was like, what are you doing? And they turned it into this kind of casual game. So originally they had this kind of standoffish, you guys know what you're doing, but then it turned into a casual game, and then it got to the point we said, can we take the names off the game please, because we don't want to be associated anymore. But that's the danger of becoming a publisher, that at some point they could turn and say, well actually we're holding all the money.
Yeah.
If you want to change, you've got to make it. And I'm finding that at the moment, even with the work for hire stuff, they hire me to make a game for them. They give you editorial control and design control, all this kind of thing, but when it comes to release, they say, can we just make these small changes? And they're never small.
Change control is good.
Yeah.
Any questions at all about contract work or working with publishers? Yeah,
have you ever done like a Zuckerberg, by which, in which case, like somebody's come up to you with an idea, and you say, you know what, we're actually not going to implement like the idea to like how well we can implement it to like what we're capable of, but we're going to like steal this idea for our own stuff?
Yeah, all the time. No.
It's a snake, right, with colours.
And neon.
And neon.
It's very important.
And characters.
Yeah.
Anything else? Yeah. Have we got a mic because we can't hear. No.
Over there.
It's because we're indie. Okay. Well. Yeah. Go for it.
Obviously, you mentioned some publishers are quite good on the marketing side. Are there any publishers you've thought or that any of you've dealt with that you think particularly good in the mobile and iOS or kind of indie space that you'd recommend? Because I know a lot of them are finding have very traditional ways of doing things in marketing. And it'd be interesting to know from kind of which one to consider to be doing with making that transition.
I got to be honest, I've been approached by a number of people saying that we can market your game, and it's always been, give us lots of money, we'll do that. But I got to be honest with you, I mean, when Hard Lines, it was Angry Lines when it started, wasn't it? When Hard Lines came out and was twittering about it, I found that's probably kind of the better one to do, is just get that word out yourself and just start getting your friends to tweet about it, start getting your friends talking about it, spread as much as possible. And with that, you're keeping all the money yourself, you're not paying a middleman. And that, part of the agreements they were coming with for the marketing was an entertainment budget, and that was like an unending pot. Like, what's that mean?
I mean,
Well, Ed's an ex-journalist, he'll know.
Oh yeah, what does it mean?
Ex-journalist, thank you very much.
I said ex.
He said ex.
I think, well, I mean, I didn't work with publishers, so, I don't know of any first-hand, but the experience tells me that I'd be wary of any of the old-school publishers that are trying to kind of just jump in, because they probably know as much or less than you do, and if that's the case, why would you want their help? So like people like Chillingo, I haven't worked with them, but they know the market, they grew to the power that they are, knowing the iPhone, so I would hope that they would do a good job.
Well, at the end of the day, just look at the chart. I mean, that's showing who's selling the most and marketing the best, obviously. Obviously, there's new publishers arriving.
Andrew, you joined a movement called Who Needs Chillingo? And then you just mentioned Chillingo, so I'd like you to explain.
I don't know, well, show of hands, who needs Chillingo? I don't know. I don't think. And nobody else does, look, it's official. quick tweet it. Well,
Okay.
It's mean because they get picked on because they're successful, and that's what happens, right? That's just the way of the world, I guess. But it's pretty much just a little dig at publishers and like stop taking away from our ideas. It's very sort of noble indie cause, whether it's sensible or not, I don't know.
I know. I mean, we're sort of regretting not working with someone on the marketing side on TikTok Body Pop now, I think.
Yeah.
We were sort of busy with other projects at the time, maybe didn't put as much into it as we'd like to, but certainly a different app store to what it was when we launched Quiz, because that did really good numbers for us. But that was 2-3 years ago when the market was much easier to get over the top, and you can stay in the top 10 across Europe and make a lot of money doing that.
Yeah.
But nowadays, if you just happen to not hit your launch window and get the marketing push behind it, you won't make much money.
That's the thing. I mean, we've done okay with Hardline. It's me and a guy, and he doesn't really work for me.
Shows up.
He just shows up and gives me a game, and then I pretend it's mine. I'm a publisher. What am I even doing here?
You're on the wrong panel.
Well, I think that you're right. Lots of people have been coming to me and saying, well done with all the PR that you've been doing, and I think it's been very positive. We've got some amazing reviews, and we've been on FHM.com and The Guardian and things like that, which I'd never thought we'd get to with essentially my first original game. But the sales support, the sales are going to support me to make another one, but it hasn't set my world on fire. I'm not buying a Porsche tomorrow or anything like that. But then again, there is that sort of perhaps traditional view of, you got your window and you've got to make the most of it at launch. But I mean, we've got some plans down the line. We're going to support it for a very, very long time. as long as it makes sense to. And because it's just me and a guy, it's going to make sense for a long, long time because it doesn't cost anything.
It is possible to update things and to bring them back. I mean, Train Yard was a massive success. That was live on the App Store for about 6 months before it made its money. It was selling nothing.
Doesn't it make a difference what you define as a success, though? Because I mean, I was talking to another indie developer I was working with, and I said to him, "What would you have to make in order to be considered a success?" And his answer was £100,000 a year. I thought, well, you're in the wrong game, aren't you?
Yeah, why are you making games?
Yeah. I mean, for some, it's rapid expansion, building a great studio, getting it to 30 people. For me, it's just I just want to be able to make games, get them playing people. I want to make money from it, yes, but I'm not got lofty ambitions of going up and buying Ferraris, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I'd just like to not be in a shed by myself. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
That's my ambition. That would be success.
There's a real darkness to this story. I don't think I want to go there. Is there any more questions? There was a question at the front.
Yeah, what I was going to ask is where you've got where you're independent. Yeah. Where you're independent and you're not tied to the ideas and the plans of a larger publisher, how do you maintain that balance of creating something that can appeal to a lot of people and make money while still making something that you like?
The balance. It's hard, like I said earlier. When somebody comes up with a contract with a quite high daily rate, I have to think twice about taking it because I think, well, that's going to pay me for the next 6 months. And what I tend to do, to be honest with you, is like when I worked for EA with Steve there, I would actually work on my game on the commute in the morning and the commute in at night, and I would actually work, until about midnight on my own game while still doing the contract with EA. And I managed to publish a game that way. And it works for me. And that's what the kind of model I thought, well, I can maintain that, and I have done it. But on this recent project, it got so intense that the hours on the project itself are too much, so there's no balance there whatsoever at the moment. And that's tough.
It can be difficult. I think sometimes when you've... Also, I mean, when you're doing work for hire stuff, sometimes you can find it really unfulfilling. I'm not mentioning any names, obviously. But you can be doing it and you just think this isn't really what I want to be doing. And so, because Curve is a company of 20, 30 people, what we specifically have done to make sure that people don't feel disillusioned with what they're doing, which sometimes they do, everybody has their off days, is that we specifically make it that they are, there is a specific bolded section of our contract that says anything you work on outside of the office hours is yours. It's nothing to do with us. We encourage people to, people form teams with each other, and they work on things. We've got some of the guys have got an iPhone game coming out really soon, and so we just try to support that. I mean, we're going to try and help market it with them and stuff like that. So we try and let people have their kind of freedom, and if it has to be outside of work, if they've got that passion, then there's no reason to stop that.
And we do that as well. 2 of our guys are working on I think Xbox Live indie game together. 2 of our other guys have been doing some stuff on Windows Phone, I think. Yeah, and that's great. I think
you've got an indie studios inside it.
Yeah, pretty good.
Wow. Well, I don't know if you guys know a game called Euphoria, which is pretty big in the indie sector. I mean, that was made by 2 people at Curve who worked on it outside of office hours. It's a PC version, and then they quit to do the PSN version. And we've helped them with all of what we learned on the submission and all that kind of stuff. And obviously, you don't want to lose people, but if they're creatively fulfilled, that's what it should be about.
Yeah.
That's the indie thing. Whether you're working for a publisher or not, is that you are making things you want to be making. That's
Yeah, I mean, it's, we employ people because they're passionate, and so whilst obviously there can't be a conflict of interest, and we like to know what they're doing and stuff. As long as there isn't a conflict of interest, I think that's healthy, because I think if they're getting excited and doing stuff, that can only be good.
I'll be honest, we don't have that conflict, we've got the opposite, but we do provide our engine. We provide the engine to the guys, we support them, and we'll also publish and help it if it's a good idea, and if not, then we'd sign a waiver to give them the chance to do that anyway. So I think the idea is that everyone can do what they want on the side, and we can talk to them about it, and then we'll have an agreement on it. But it's a contract.
Sorry, I just wondered if there's any more questions. We've got not much time. Yeah. Yep, right there. Right behind you.
Marketing. Outside of kind of having a publisher or any of the kind of traditional sides, what do you find is the most effective viral sort of marketing technique that you've used?
personally, I just find just being normal with people. I'm not very normal. That is definitely
Shock revelation.
No, but I mean, I whenever I manage the company Twitter and Facebook and all that kind of shit, and I talk to them as if they weren't, people have said to us that they really like the way that we interact with them because we treat them as if they were just, people that are interested. We don't attempt to have a corporate communication strategy. We just, when it's something that we are in power, we have the power to discuss how it is revealed when it's one of our own projects. It's just to be honest, be personal and amiable and it's we have people that are really hardcore fans and follow Friday Us every single Friday, and it's like, it's cute. I'm not doing that's not even that cute dog. But people really do react to it, and journalists too. I mean, I think I don't really have much of a frame of reference to say it, but I think especially gaming journalists are force-fed the PR shit all the time. I mean, I certainly was, and to not get it is really nice. And when you get somebody that's actually just being honest, you're like, I'm more likely to pay attention to this because it doesn't, because I'm not being fed a screenshot this week.
Yeah.
They're actually just chatting to me.
I mean, we screwed up hugely when we released, I think, our first patch for Hardlines. It just crashed the game. God knows how it got through. Actually, I know, but I'm not going to say. And we got, we actually got some upset emails. I got some emails, and I responded to them, and that was it. I didn't think twice about it. It's not a PR strategy, like you say. It's just being a person, and almost all of them responded and thanked me, and like promised to go and buy it, whether they did or not. When it was fixed, and then tell their friends, and that's just even outside of games. I think people in any market really value that sort of one-to-one. How many people here are annoyed at ringing up a call centre and just having to deal with a machine, and you just want to talk to someone. It's a really natural thing, and we've just naturally got that as indies.
Yeah, I think we've got to end there at the end. So I think maybe if you take three things away from this, it's maybe digital distribution isn't the panacea. You've got to be careful with that. All publishers aren't evil, and never go in Andrew's shed. Thank you very much.
Cool, so we're just going to swap the mics over. Next up is David Larkey from London Venture Partners, followed very shortly by Tony from